Hey everyone, welcome to episode 6 of the Topology Crash Course. In this episode, we will go over the basic fundamentals of retopology. Firstly, we will see the quickest way of retopologizing assets with perfect quad topology. Then, we will see how we can manually retopologize for maximum control over the result. At the end, I will show you how to bake high poly assets into a normal map for the low poly version. Alright, let's take a look at the first method. The quickest and easiest method to retopologize assets is to use the quad remesher program. Now, there are many free and paid ones available, but I recommend instant meshes. If you Google instant meshes, you will come across this GitHub page with all the files you need. This is a totally free and open source program. In fact, Modo uses this exact algorithm for their automatic retopology feature. In order to download this program, you'll scroll down to the precompiled binaries section over here and select your operating system. It's available for Windows, macOS, and Linux. Once you download the file, it will come in a zip archive and you simply need to extract it. This will leave you with an instant mesh exe file. From there, you can simply launch the instant mesh exe file and you will see the interface appear shortly. The first step is to load the model you wish to retopologize. The preferred format is OBJ. If you don't know how to export your model in OBJ format, all you have to do is have your model in Cinema 4D, and then you go to File, Export, OBJ. This will save your model into an OBJ format that you can import into Instant Meshes. Once you have your model imported into Instant Meshes, you can navigate the viewport with your mouse. Left click will orbit, right click will pan, and the scroll wheel will zoom. Pretty simple controls. Let's take a look at the settings here. First thing we have is the Advanced tab. In this tab, you can turn on all sorts of stuff such as wireframe, vertex IDs, and much more. In our case, we will only use the wireframe. I like having it turned on so you can see what you're working with. After that, you have one of the most important settings, Remesh As. It will give you three options, triangles, quads 2x4, and quads 4x4. We want to select the last option. Next, we have configuration details. I will turn on align to boundaries so our retopologized model follows the same boundaries as the input model. If you have some sharp edges in your model, you can also turn on sharp creases. We don't need it for our case. After that, we have our target vertex count. This is essentially the poly count you want for the final retopologized model. I will increase it to around 1.6k. Once you set the vertex count, you need to solve the orientation field. Simply click Solve. As you can see, this will draw orientation lines on your model. This will help the software calculate the poly flow. Once the orientation field is solved, you need to solve the position field. Once again, simply click Solve. Once it's done, you can go into Export Mesh. Here you have two more really important settings. The first one is Pure Quad Mesh. As the name implies, this will make sure that the entire model consists only of quads. And the second option is Smoothing Iteration. This will smooth out the surface and make the model look much nicer. I'm gonna crank that up to 10 since pretty much all of our surfaces are curved and we need it to be smooth. Once you have those two settings set, you can click Extract Mesh and you will see your end result. Once you're happy with it, you can click Save and save your retopologized model. Here in Cinema 4D, I have the two models side by side just so you can see the massive difference in topology. The retopologized version is much easier to work with, especially if you want a UV unwrap. Alright, we saw how to automatically retopologize a model. Now let's see how we can do it manually. Essentially, we will draw over our original model to create our own topology. In order for our topology to follow the model's shape, we will use the shrink wrap deformer. Here I started with a simple square plane, and this will be our first polygon. You may notice that the polygon is orange, and this is because I changed the default color. When you select the polygon, you have an option called Display Color. If you set Use Color to On, you can pick a display color. I like to set mine to a nice bright color so it's easier to work with. And in general, it's just easier to see in your viewport. Alright, so let's start applying the shrink wrap. So you want to select your polygon, hold Shift, and then click and hold the Deformers tab, and then select Shrink Wrap. If you hold Shift, it will make the shrink wrap a child of our object. This is exactly what we want. Now to make our polygons follow the model, we want to select the shrink wrap, go into Object tab, and here you have a field called Target Object. This is where you input your high poly model. So I'm going to click on this button here and select our high poly model. As soon as you do that, you will see that our polygon will snap onto the model. This is exactly what we're looking for. From now on, we can select our polygon and start extruding the sides. This way we will gradually make our way around the model. I will keep going with this so you can see how it works. Alright, so I kept going with this for a bit and you can see that we slowly start getting closer and closer to the original model. This method works perfectly for the subdivision workflow. If I turn on subdivision and I hide the model, as you can see we have a pretty much perfect shape. By doing this whole process manually, you will have full control over your topology. Therefore, you can plan for your UVs ahead. Now that we saw the basics of retopology, let's see how we can bake details of a high poly mesh into a normal map for our low poly model. So here we have a simple low poly crate with sharp edges. And I also have a high poly one with beveled corners. As you can see, there's a lot more polygons in this one. Let's bake all those bevels into a normal map that we can use on our low poly model. First thing, we will start by adding a blank material on our low poly model. This is a requirement for the bake texture. There you go, we have the material applied. Now we will add a bake texture tag. So we're gonna right click on our low poly model, go to Cinema 4D tags and select bake texture. Once we have the tag applied, let's start inputting our settings. For the format, I will use PNG 16-bit. For the resolution, I will go with 2K for this demonstration. There we go, we're gonna go with 2K. Then we have super sampling. I will increase it to 2. This will give us a smoother result for our normal map. And for the pixel border, I'm gonna set it to 10. This is the distance between the normal details and the texture boundaries. I will also check continue UVs, since both of our models have the same UV. Now let's move to the options tab. In here we specify which maps we need. In our case, we're only gonna go with normal. Once you check normal, a new section appears. This is where you input your high poly model to bake. So we're going to click on the selection button and select the high poly model. There you go. For our normal method, we will go with tangent. This is the standard method for normal maps. And now we have our last setting, which is called ray casting. This is the distance at which the calculating rays will be casted. In order to speed up the process, we will scale down a bit. So instead of using this big value here, we will use about 50 centimeters. This will depend on the scale of your model. Alright, that's all the settings we need. Now we're gonna hit bake and wait for it to bake a normal map. Now this is gonna take some time, so I'm gonna speed it up. Alright, the bake normal is done, and as you can see we have all of our beveled details laid out nicely. All you have to do is right click and save the normal map. Once you saved it, you can open the empty material we created. And now you can simply load in your normal map. Alright, we have the normal map applied. Let's hit render. And you will see that we have some weird artifacts going on. This is because we have angle limit applied to our Phong tag. To fix it, simply select the Phong tag and turn off angle limit. As you can see, now we get a render that looks just like our high poly model by using a combination of the low poly version with a baked normal map. Alright, so this concludes the topology crash course. I really hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. Now go out there and start creating.